Hello, Greenspring. This is Steve Guback, and the show we have is Talking Sports at Channel 6. Bob Zekowicz, who normally is the host, was under the weather today, and so he called in and said that he wasn't going to be able to make it. We wish Bob the best health possible, and that the virus or whatever he has will disappear within a day or two. In the meantime, of course, we got Carl Sell here, and Carl worked many years with me at the old Wahington Evening Star, and so he's pretty knowledgeable on a lot of subjects. Talking about Bob, we had suggested that maybe the fact that he can't be here, Carl suggested that he might call in with a question. But anyway, one of the things that happened over the past week, I had covered the Redskins in various capacities for 55 years, starting with the first game when I covered them for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, 1959. So anyway, it's been an enjoyable relationship. And when the Star folded in 1981, I worked a couple of years full-time with the Redskins, and then worked in the press box, doing various assignments, mainly play-by-play. Lately, I've been a spotter. And so after 55 years, I really had some difficulty distinguishing numbers, whether it was 68 or 66 or 88, or the numbers all ran together, even with binoculars. So I tried the 2 exhibition games earlier this year, and then felt that I didn't want to make mistakes where they had to keep saying correction. It wasn't 68, it was 66 or something like that. So I suggested that I retire. 55 years is long enough. So anyway, they invited me back last home game, and much to my amazement, they came out with some goodies. They had this shirt with the number 55 for the 55 years, and I was flattered to get it. And they also had talk a little bit at the press box, and they gave me an autographed football, so that was a nice appreciation. And one of the things that they before the season began, they had you sign a waiver. And in my case, one of the lines said that I would not date a cheerleader. And of course, that broke up everybody, and so that was a standing joke. So as that part of the goodie bag, since I couldn't date them, they gave me a calendar with the cheerleaders on it. So I thought you'd all enjoy seeing that. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And now enough about me. Carl, with the Redskins having the kind of season they're having, are you more disappointed in Jay Gruden, RG3, both, or none at all?
Well, I'm disappointed in it all together, Steve. And in defense of all of them, they've had a tough year with injuries, having a quarterback trying to pick up a new system and another new coach, and it's been very difficult. The last couple of games, it really, you can see that. To me, they seem confused, and but that'll have a way of working it out. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if new personnel. We've tried new personnel. Uh, the only thing I'm disappointed in is they haven't addressed, since we've been talking on this show and talking here at Greenspring, they haven't addressed the offensive line problem, and I think that's the key to all their problems.
Yeah, well, a good offensive line, you can go a long way
Yep.
with it. The Hogs proved that. And you have the running game, and that helps the quarterback, obviously, because you're not going to blitz as much. And if the quarterback is sharp, then that'll help the running game. At least when you see Griffin coming into the game, it looks like Morris becomes a better runner, because obviously the defense has to be a bit concerned about the running of RG3. I don't know how they're going to be able to make up the difference in a winning season and a 3-win season, how long it's going to take them. My guess would be several years.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the ownership is going to have enough faith in Jay Gruden to keep him that long.
That's been the problem. They don't, they're too quick to pull the trigger and change, and when things don't work, and in the end, National Football League, it takes time. I mean, everybody else watches the films too and looks for your weaknesses, so it takes a while to hide them.
Well, in many cases, the coach, the longevity of the coach turns out to be an asset.
Yeah.
Generally, they pull the trigger too soon. Tom Landry, of course, never won a game in the first year. And Joe Gibbs lost his first 5 games. And you can talk about pulling the trigger, but the only coach, to my knowledge, who has had winning seasons and been in the league more than 10 years was George Allen. And he had the unique knack of getting the best from his players, and also had the unique knack of having the over-the-hill gang. And he didn't deal in the wisdom of having draft choices. They found as many good players in the later rounds as some other team might have found in the earlier rounds. And George got these old guys who knew the system and knew the tricks of the trade, and so they turned out to have winning seasons every year he was here.
Well, Steve, you and I have been around long enough to remember when the Dallas Cowboys started. Tom Landry won 1 game, I believe, his first year, and everybody thought he was the dumbest coach in America.
Yeah.
And a few years later, they wondered how smart he got so quick.
Yeah. Well, he had a couple of lean years right off the bat.
Yeah.
It takes time to build a team, and I think Gruden has a spotty first year in my estimation. There's things he did that I'm not quite sure, like at the end of the first half, right before the controversial play with Griffin coming, there was a penalty, and he accepted to take the play rather than a penalty, which would have put them on the 2-yard line. And I've seen no explanation of why he did that. And at times the clock management seems a bit erratic. He has, or whoever it is, has difficulty getting the play in time. And but I think by the same token, he's gotten a bad rap. One of the writers in the Post were talking about and attempted to say that most of the team, if not all of the team, was against RG3 because they spotted him when they were admitted to the locker room sitting all by himself. Well, they don't know the previous 10 minutes when the team is not allowed to have the press in, whether everybody came over and congratulated, give RG3 for a better game, or patting him on the back and said, "You're learning fast, kid," or what. But the implication was that he was not on top of the thing because he didn't know Randy Moss was thrown out at halftime. You know, when and his concern at the time was to get the ball club back on track.
Right.
Not so the fact that he didn't know whether
Yeah, I
Moss had
couldn't
been
believe
through.
that they didn't know Moss had been thrown out of the. Somebody had to know.
Yeah, well, I would think the assistant coaches would have
Well, but
known.
maybe they ought to tell him.
Well, but basically the head coach is at a different spot in the locker room, you know, trying to get the offensive line together, the pass and the receivers or whatever it would be. And but the assistant coach, you know, just I guess assumed that he knew. So anyway, I don't think that was as big a deal as they tried to make it out. I think Gruden has handled some things, I think, rather well.
Right.
And one of the things that they're going to have this year is a new collegiate setup with the playoffs. They have 4 teams that they picked to be contenders for the national championship, and somebody like TCU, which had a terrific year, wound up at the end of the year with 53-3 thrashing of I don't remember whether it was Oklahoma State or not, but it was some team, and they dropped out of the top
I can't
3-4 spots.
I can't figure out how you can be third for so long, and then the last week you win by 50 points.
Yeah.
And the team who barely won, albeit maybe a better team, I don't know. They beat Wisconsin, who was ranked 13th, I think, and Florida State beat Georgia Tech in a went right up. Georgia Tech's a pretty good football team, and TCU went south. You know, they were gone, and Ohio State moved up. I couldn't figure that out.
Well, I think the group that selects the teams is dominated by athletic directors.
Yes.
And TCU has an enrollment, maybe 9,000. That doesn't transport into a lot of money.
Right.
And by picking Ohio State, you know you're going to get a great fan base wherever they play. But I'm concerned about the kid who's on a, you know, comes from a middle class family and wants to go to all the games. Well, he had to go maybe out of town for the championship game of the Big Ten or whatever the league might have been. Then if they win the first round of the playoffs, if they win the championship, he's got to get to the first round of the playoff. And then if they win that, then he got the national championship game. And if he's in debt right now, he's going to be in really bad shape.
Well, we'd put that on top of the student loan.
Boy, I tell you, that's, and
well, you know that as well as I do, they've got to get away from this situation that everybody, to picking the teams who travel well. Remember, they can travel well means they can bring so many fans. That's Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State. They travel well because they're going to fill a stadium no matter where they go.
Yeah.
And Ohio State is sitting there with a 100,000 plus stadium and season tickets, I guess, that they sell out every game. It's a money situation. I don't, you know, they could come to Greenspring and pick a group to pick the team, do just as well as that crowd did, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Well, that'd be a stretch, but what's his name up in Ashburn, Aspie Ponds. Would
Right,
probably,
right. We got one take, one guy, one
They
team.
don't travel
yeah.
well.
yeah, yeah. Well, maybe they don't travel as well as Greenspring does. You're right.
Yeah. But are you as interested in the college playoffs as you're supposed to be?
No.
Yeah,
Well, every week we've been bombarded with these stories about they met and maybe they'll do this and maybe they'll do that. And when they got to the end, what they did was a disappointment to me. I mean, Alabama, okay, I'll watch Alabama play, but I don't understand how the TCUs and I do. They don't have a championship playoff game.
yeah.
And I think that's why they. But I just don't understand how you could. If Ohio State was that good, they should have been in the running. They were down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, for most of
At
the
one
year.
time, yeah. And then he lost the quarterback.
Right.
But they really slayed Wisconsin in their final
Right,
game.
right.
And, well, let's see. How about at minimum, not a minimum salary, but a minimum, they could extend the contract.
$5 million
I
is
guess.
not a minimum.
Yeah. They could have expanded it, or they may when he has a great year. But somehow I just have a sneaking suspicion that somewhere along the line, Harper will be somewhere along the line. Do you see that?
Probably. I think it depends on how the Yankees can get out of paying Rodriguez all the money now that he's back and he's going to collect that fabulous salary, whether he does anything or not. And, I don't know if they're willing to pull a trigger, but I think Harper, to me, has not been, he's still hype Harper. He's not. He's certainly not a star yet. Everybody expects him to be and thinks he's going to be, but he hasn't shown that except until a little bit in the playoffs at the end of last year. There's no question about that. So maybe the next 2 years he will become the player that they think he's going to be, and then if that's true, then yes, if the Yankees want him or the Dodgers want him, don't forget those other guys on the West Coast with all the money. But Nationals. The Lerners, Ted Lerner's got $5 of the first $50 the $5 of the first dollar he ever earned. He's, they're pretty well off.
Frugal.
Yeah, I would say sort of like the Gubacks.
Yeah, well, I knew that was coming. The minute I said it, I knew it was big.
Oh, here it comes.
But
yeah, I think I'm glad that Harper baseball, and I think that's going to tell us how good he can really be because he doesn't have to worry about all the other things. I think the best thing about Harper is that so far he's been a model citizen as far as a highly thought of professional athlete today. You don't find many that are under the radar, and I'm sure that people following any problems. He's obviously not taking driving lessons from Jason Worth.
yeah. We hope.
we hope, yeah. Who, by the way, I thought that was refreshing that when they asked him what he was doing, and he said he's seeing how fast he could go. At least he told the truth.
Uh-huh. But I sometimes wonder what the 10 days in jail.
Right.
And somehow I don't see that as being as useful to society as the penalty should be. I think if he's ordered to do 200 hours community service, that would be enough penalty for him. And on drunken driving, on speeding, and he would make a real contribution. 10 days behind bars, I don't see what contribution that'll be.
Well, there's only so many you can draw in the Fairfax jail, you know. So he'd be better off out talking to kids, and you know, he's speeding and reckless driving and all that kind of stuff, but that's not drugs, and that's at the Fan Fest. I wasn't there, so I can't tell you the truth, but what I read was that he was still, the kids still flocked to him to get his autograph and everything else. So I think that they're smart. I suspect he'll get another judge, and his time will be suspended. And if he does so many hours of community service, it'll be wiped off the books and all that kind of stuff. And maybe
he'll be put on.
And rather to go to the ballpark.
He could borrow my car.
Yeah.
I don't think he could go over 70. I've never tried it. But now the other question that I have about the Nats at this point is, how good a first baseman do you think Ryan Zimmerman will be?
As compared to what?
Well,
you don't compare to Adam LaRoche now.
Right, no.
Well, Ryan Zimmerman is an athlete. Well, he does some things a lot better than others. He plays third base as good as anybody plays it today, but he'll be able to play first base. The big difference is that he's going to be going a different way and throwing a different way than he has before, and he'll learn that.
Well, we hope he doesn't have to throw too many.
Well, he throws them underhanded. Yeah. Good, you know.
Well, I'm sure that somewhere in the season they're going to miss LaRoche's. Desmond is going to be the guy that really misses him.
Probably the first one that goes in the dirt to first base. They'll say, "Gee, I wish Adam were back."
Yeah. But anyway, that'll be interesting to keep on watching.
Oh, that's interesting. Worth wore LaRoche. Yeah. So he's already put the idea that you know, we're hurting. We need. That's kind of funny.
Well, I hope they don't trade Fister.
Yeah.
They're talking, you know.
Well, I hope they hope to keep the two Z's, the two N Zimmermans.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be, to me, terrific.
Yeah, I don't see them getting rid of him, though.
Well, but somebody else, after next year, he can go as a free agent, and there's not enough money in the world to keep him. You know, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, if the learners can pay.
Well, but they can't pay. They paid Worth pretty good. They can't pay Harper. They can't pay Zimmer. You know, they've got to find a second baseman and pay him pretty good. So it gets pretty expensive.
Well, maybe the Baltimore Orioles will help them out with the television revenue. It's several $1 million.
Well, that's the league. Bud Selig did that. He set that up to talk Angelos into allowing the team to come here. He gave them the premium amount. Last week there was another court ruling that helps the Nationals, so they're going to get more money than they have in the past, but it's still not a split. And I think the last couple of years that the Nationals will probably outdrawn the Orioles only because of sheer numbers.
Yeah.
On the telecast. So we'll see. They've got to work that out. And Fister's money and the other guys that they want to keep in Harper, their money's tied up in that Masson TV contract, I would think.
Yeah. Switching sports a little bit, the Wizards are doing pretty good right now. They're surprisingly better than anybody anticipated them. I hope they can last the full year. From the bench and every other place. And on the collegiate scene, it seems like Kentucky is uncommonly blessed or recruited or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But they got a terrific
or
collection.
Purchase might be a better word.
They got a terrific group of guys. And 1976 when Indiana won 32-0 and won the national championship. Being a guy who graduated from Indiana University, Kentucky doesn't sit too well with us folks, and so I hope they get beat somewhere along the line. But I was looking at their schedule, and they have a game against UCLA in December, and they also got a meeting with Louisville in December. Now Louisville is a good basketball school,
right.
And they could give them a really tight ball game. But I don't know. I think it's played in Louisville. But anyway. Look like they're any threat to Kentucky, and then once they get in the NCAA championship, that's.
Well, the story around here in this area is Virginia, and what the coach has done there in a relatively short period of time to build a program, and he's got a defense that his father played for years, and now he plays. They played a game the other day and held the opponent to 40-some points.
Yeah.
And they play, obviously, in the ACC, and that's a tough league, as you know. And they won that last year. Yeah, they won that last year.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they go and how the area teams go. GW, I guess, is pretty good.
Right.
Maryland seems to be. Virginia, of course, is a surprise, and so those are all things we'll have to look forward to as the days and months go on. But we're surprised that Bob hadn't called in with a question. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up, and maybe we'll be back at full strength for the next session.
Get well, Bob.
And in the meantime, Chair, until after the holidays, so we wish everybody out there at Greenspring health, good health, happiness, and productivity, and blessings. Thank you for tuning in.